the end of the year is drawing to a close and we're all facing fatigue and perhaps not optimal brain performance. Well, Dr. Darren Green is in our studio today to talk about that. How do we optimize and utilize our brain power? But before we take your calls on 083 9133728, take a look at this.
The human brain is the greatest computer on the planet, and evidence shows our brains are still evolving. But what everyone wants is to learn how to use this amazing organ to its full potential.
So many of us want to know how we can unlock the magic potential of our human brains and actually just how much of our brains we use on a day-to-day basis. So we decided to speak to an expert, Dr. Etienne van der Walt. Tell us, how would you define applied neuroscience in layman's terms, and how does this differ from clinical neurology?
Clinical neurology is a field in medicine. It's the knowledge of the diseases of the nervous system, including and of course that includes the brain. And so the brain, spinal cord, nerves and muscle. On the other hand, applied cognitive neuroscience is we apply our knowledge about how the brain functions in terms of its higher order capabilities.
So are there specific factors we can address to improve our brain function?
There are foundational drivers, and we all know them. Some of them: exercise, hugely important, and of course now we know that certain types of exercise enhance brain performance and specific areas of the brain and the performing brain more significantly than others. Also complex motor activities, things like Pilates and aerobics, and of course a number of things you can do outdoors, team sports and so on. They are very useful. We understand now from science to enhance and support your brain performance capacity, and so it's a very physical thing. We think of sleep-wake cycle. You need to sleep between 7 and 9 hours a night. Those are examples of the more foundational drivers of performance. There are value tags we call the sense of belonging. If you don't belong in your group, your performance will be reduced inevitably, and it's been well shown. Have goal directedness. How directed am I to achieve goals and maximize my rewards and avoid threats? Addictions, serious problem in the world, reduces that goal directedness significantly. So there are a number of these drivers that play an important role in enhancing brain performance.
Knowing that exercise, sleep, relationship fulfillment and having goals can help our brains work better, the question is, can this information be applied in specific environments?
We are working with large corporations in South Africa at the moment with this product called Neurozone for Business, which has now taken this neurobiological model, used the drivers, and we've developed a very proper, robust psychometric assessment tool to assess what we call your brain performance opportunity profile. And then there's sport. We all love sport. Sport is a very important part of our lives, and we can maximize brain potential in individuals in sport. I think this is a wonderful field, and so applied cognitive neuroscience gives us the capabilities with new developments and advents to actually do something seriously, properly, hard science-based to enhance the performance capabilities of all these people within these numerous fields in life.
Absolutely fascinating stuff. It's been an incredibly fascinating experience learning more about enhancing brain function.
A healthy lifestyle, including emotional and mental wellness, are key to improving your brain's performance. Perhaps you may even discover that you could be the next Albert Einstein.
I'd love to be the next Albert Einstein. Well, in studio today, Dr. Darren Green, to give us some advice on how to improve our brain function. Now, Dr. Darren Green, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
As soon as we put the kids on holiday, you know, we bring things that makes them either work during the holidays or we go, you know what, we know how to optimally make your brain work. But let's get to it. What can we do to enhance our focus and concentration, especially for our young ones who are studying?
Yes, I think the biggest problem, obviously, is gaining focus, concentration, and then obviously repetition. So when you create a new memory, for example, if you can't focus on something long enough to actually notice what it is and what it comprises, you're not going to lay down a memory. Concentration, on the other hand, exactly the same. You need time to be able to focus on something. Without that, and without doing it a few times, you're not going to be able to lay down. That's just how the brain's designed. And the different parts of the brain are involved, obviously, in the concentration and focus part. And the memory, obviously, from the temporal lobes, very dependent on that process. But there are millions of factors that play a role.
I'm thinking now of how we studied during the exams at school. You ate bananas and rusks and you picked up a lot of weight because you thought that the food is going to do the thing. But how do we enhance our memory?
Yeah, so memory specifically, if we take the component of focus, often you're told, take a break if you find you're struggling to really even read a full paragraph without breaking. Take a ball, throw it against the wall, focus on catching it. It just helps center your concentration, your thoughts. Okay. A squash ball, hitting a ball against the wall, for example, useful. Also, you find people find jumping on a little exercise ball. You know, these Pilates balls that people do abdominal exercises on. Bouncing on it, increasing your muscle tone, helping to just focus your energy to your muscles specifically, and raising the body tone helps you focus. And then obviously with the concentration, people can help enhance concentration medically with certain drugs. All parents, obviously, a lot of them scared about Ritalin in children with attention deficit. And then, obviously, the move towards a lot of the natural supplementation issues, like omega-3, for example, and the essential fatty acids, proving to be quite useful in terms of preserving brain function. Not so much literature yet on enhancing brain function.
You just mentioned a few key examples. I mean, food obviously does play a role. You mentioned omegas, and I want to touch on this. I mean, the role that food plays in brain performance. And I'm thinking specifically about our children, and don't get any ideas now, but when they're in an exam and thinking that they're having a blank, you know, these words.
Yes.
They're having a blank,
a
or a blackout, you know. How do we prevent this? Is food a big thing?
It is indeed. I think that the two big things, the brain, in order to function, needs glucose. So you need a sustained, constant supply of energy to the brain in the form of glucose. And how we do that, obviously, is looking at low GI foods. Giving your child some white bread, for example, that spikes the sugar level, or some Coca-Cola, helps them with an energy surge to the brain for a short period of time, but then they have the crash, the dip thereafter, where they really actually feel worse than they did before even commencing studying. And then, obviously, the other thing is exercise and sleep. Exercise interval training, in other words, raising your heart rate up quite quickly and then bringing it down, and then fast again, like running between lamp poles, for example, sprinting between two lamp poles, jogging between the next two. That's proved quite beneficial.
I want to touch on that, you know, obesity and brain power and all of that, but it seems like we do have a call this morning, 083-9133728 if you want to give us a call. We are live on Expresso. Elizabeth, what's your question to Dr. Darren Green? You're live. Elizabeth, you're live. You can turn down your television, but we can hear you. What's your question to Dr. Darren Green?
I'm also a little deaf. Not a little deaf, I'm quite deaf.
No problem. What's your question?
I want to ask him, I'm 85 years old. How can I improve my brain? Because I'm sitting here with a knee. I had a very bad fall.
Oh, Elizabeth, thank you so much for our call. And thanks that you're watching your Feel Good Breakfast Show this time of the morning when you're a young 85. You've still got a lot of years ahead of you, eh?
Yes.
What advice do you have for her? So you just mentioned exercise.
And she's got an injured knee, so she's worried about not being mobile. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it. When it comes to those billions of connections between the neurons, the specialized cells, sure, there's a lot to be said for hardwiring. In other words, what you do early on in your life affects, for example, the capacity of the skills that you learn in the later phases of your life. When you get to the age of 85, you've actually got to preserve your brain function. How you do that is by keeping the brain active, crossword puzzles, doing Sudoku, reading, looking at, for example, your fantasy world as well, enhancing those performances. So she definitely can still do a lot to preserve what she has. Remember the use it or lose it rule. It applies to the brain too.
I love that. So everything that you've learned throughout your youth, you actually get to 85, like Elizabeth. Thanks again for your call. And you maintain it, basically.
That's right.
Wow. Well, we're going to want to take more of your calls, 083-9133728. We're talking about optimally using your brains. And Katlego is also here. Hey, Bubu.
Yeah,
Are you using your brain?
I'd rather prefer to use mine.